And welcome back into Brooklyn News' coverage here. We just learned that the prosecution and the defense entered the courtroom and that everyone was excused for the day, including the jury. Trump just walking past cameras moments ago. So again, it has been one slow day, just consistently sitting down, waiting for updates. Trump may come out and speak in a minute. We do have that feed for you guys. As soon as he does do so, we will bring that directly to you all. But just moments ago, he did walk in front of the cameras here, and I'll see if I can. It's just a few moments ago here. I can't really see what I'm looking at here. Here's that feed from just a moment ago when this is like right before Trump began to walk in and through these doors there. So we are watching that and seeing exactly what may happen here. He did say something. I want to listen to that, what he said here. So let's listen in. I can't exactly tell what he said, but I do know he said something. That is our jury timer right there. And let me go back live here on that feed, and I apologize for the lag there. We're going to work with that. Donald Trump, again, expected to speak any moment now outside that courtroom. We will bring that to you the second he does do so. I do want to know what he said, though, so let me tune into our stream because I knew you guys could hear it. Stand by with me here. I want to see what he said here. It's just going to take me a minute to get to our video. I think he said maybe I will when I get back or something like that. Okay, I'm going to listen. He did say something. I want to listen to that, what he said here, so let's listen in. I want something. I can't exactly. I'm sorry, now you can hear the echo of my life here. I'm not sure exactly what he said, but right now, what we're doing right now is waiting again for him to. Okay, so what just happened, and I'll bring you up to speed here as we have our jury timer here. At 4:30, the jury is going to be excused, but the reason we came on the air is because reporters were saying the prosecutors have entered the room, and then I saw Trump pass the cameras here, so I came on, and then as soon as I was trying to come on here, we learned that there will be no verdict today, and that the jury is going to be excused here at 4:30 Eastern. So in about 12 minutes or so, Trump could speak in front of the cameras any moment now. So we are watching that. I'll give you that shot up there on your screen. Again, we are watching that and seeing what may occur there. And we'll continue to provide updates. Again, this has been 11 hours, 37 minutes, and 38 minutes about to be here of deliberations from the jury. Now, the jury did say, or the judge did say the jury could stay until about 5 p.m. Central Time, which is going to be 6 p.m. Eastern. The jury deciding not to do that. So we will have to watch exactly what will go down now. So Now we're getting a report. Todd Blanche cups his mouth and leans over towards Trump, whispering in his ear. We will see what exactly happens here. We know Trump. He said he was going to speak earlier this morning. Once court ends today, so we're going to have to wait for that to occur.
And safety is always top of mind for us. Having green.
So we will be waiting for that to occur. That is one thing for sure. And I do want to see if I can get my headphones in here because I cannot hear any of our feeds. Okay, here we go. So again, to bring you all up to speed, what just happened? The prosecution entered, the defense entered. We were trying to come on the air. As we were trying to come on the air, we learned that Judge Rashan is going to excuse the jury here in about 9 minutes. Now, also what we are looking at and waiting for is Trump is expected to speak at any moment once court is over for the day. So, and as we continue to wait for that, we go ahead to sum up what today was. We started off the day with the judge fulfilling and the court really fulfilling the request of the jurors from testimony from David Pecker and Michael Cohen to be reread back to them, as well as from page 6 to 35 of the jury instructions to be read back. It's been a long day of deliberations, and the press here has been standing by all day. So again, the jury not going to stay late. They had an option to stay until 6. They're not doing that. They're going to go home. It's probably been a long day of deliberations for this in this trial. And I'm just going through different things, reading different things here. So again, what just happened here was the judge here, Judge Juan Merchan, wanted to bring in the prosecution and the defense to let everyone know that the jury would be excused at 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 our time. That's going to be now, 7 minutes? So we're waiting on that to occur. No verdict today, though, but we have been going now for 11 hours, 42 minutes, and you can watch there those seconds counting up. Again at 4:30 is when everyone is going to be excused and done with this all. For today, we'll be back here tomorrow. We're joining you here in the morning. I do assume. I don't know if we're going to join you later. It's really just going to depend on what we see. As if we see any notes or anything. So if they do pass along a note in the morning when they come in, so whenever court re-adjourns, or not re-adjourns, but gets started back up again, we'll come back on tomorrow morning, and we'll talk a little bit about what's going on here and give everyone an update. Again, Trump is expected to speak once everyone is adjourned, which is at 3:30 Central Time here that we're watching, 4:30 Eastern Time. So there's everything that we're watching right there on your screen for you. And let me put in a lower third. Oh, one moment here. This is what it looks like. You have to change things mid-air. Here we go. And there's another feed. I'm not sure what that feed is showing, or where this may be here. Oh, here comes reporters coming out of the courtroom. I'm not sure. Is Trump coming back here? I wonder. So again, no, those are just reporters walking on, I assume, probably to catch their live shot. I'm not sure what that camera there is showing. Let's just look at reporters walking outside of the courtroom, someone walking back in. Again, the judge saying jury will be dismissed at 4:30, so in about 4 minutes here. Oh, oh, oh. We're just going to take that shot off for just a moment and see what kind of happens here. And we'll go back to that shot if we need to. Maybe that's what Trump said earlier, backdoor or something of that nature. I don't know. It was inaudible to me. You have to think, inside that hallway, it is very echoey. I mean, when we're just listening to it without having anything, me talking over it or anything of that nature, it is pretty echoey. You can barely even catch someone's conversation. So again, bringing you up to date as to what's happening here as we continue to wait here. Is the jury is going to be excused at 4:30, and we can go to this live shot here. We're showing the back door of the courtroom is what it appears to be. I think this may be the overflow room, or I don't know what it is. We will have to, I guess, investigate, but the judge called in the prosecution and the defense to let them know that the jury would be dismissed at 4:30. It's unknown why the jury may not continue deliberating. We don't know. Maybe they just want to go have dinner with their family. At the end of the day, they are just people. Even though the media is just standing by all day for them to do something. Our verdict watch will be here tomorrow, though, for day 3. I'll be making all that stuff coming up for it later. But I just want to talk about the jury for just a moment here. And I believe we may have a jury graphic in here. I'll have to check. Here's our jury graphic. There we go. These are the jurors. We have a salesman, which is the foreperson, an investment banker. The second, we have 5 females and 7 men on this jury. So we have a salesman, an investment banker, an attorney, a security engineer, a teacher, a software engineer, attorney, a former wealth manager, speech therapist, commerce employee or worker, I guess you could say, product development manager, and a physical therapist all on this. So we are right now waiting to see here what we are going to see here on this live shot that may be important for us to bring to you. Let me check something really quickly. Let me check if we can get that shot back inside the courtroom. I just can't exactly see this shot fully here. Let me see if I can do something else to be able to see it completely. I'm trying something new to maybe try my best to reduce the lag here. I just don't know how to see it fully, so I just have to see it through this little bitty crack here. One moment here, everyone. I'm going to see if I can. I may be able. I have an idea here. Brand new idea. We should have that feed coming in any moment now. Yep. Here's that feedback inside the courtroom where we are waiting for them to adjourn. They have adjourned now 3 minutes ago as we were just talking and trying to get the issues resolved. And as we wait here to see what exactly happens, what exactly the jury has decided, we're going to really not necessarily what the jury has decided. I should have reworded that, but what's going to happen next year with the jury? They have now, or were expected to have gone home by this time here. You know, now the media, and now we have to begin speculating. Why aren't you going to continue deliberations until to get this over with? But you also have to think, maybe they're nowhere near being done with. Maybe we're just getting started. I mean, you have to think this was a long trial. This was a 5-week trial. It's a lot. So we have to work with the details that we have here. And it appears, because David Pecker was the very first person to testify, maybe they're going from the beginning to the end here. I don't know. But The second day here, jury deliberation expected to wrap up any moment. And then Trump said he is going to speak later, so we are waiting for that as well. But again, any moment now, second day of jury deliberation to wrap up here. We are waiting for the former president to speak here. To summarize today, we started off this morning again with David Pecker. We're not again here, but we started off this morning with Riri Banks from David Pecker's testimony as well as Michael Cohen's testimony. And then that morning, the bell had also went off for they needed some headphones and or some speakers in the room. So Judge Merchan, I believe he hooked him up with both. I don't know. I'm trying to think here. We also had the reread of some of the jury instructions. To add, we saw apparently, I want to add that according to a news source, there was, and the jury deliberation timer has stopped there. But there was, I don't know how long it's going to stop, but there was some TV added to Trump's room where he sits. It's unknown what channel that had on it. I'm interested if it, what he was watching, if it did have a channel on it. So we are waiting to hear that. Right now, we are awaiting Justice Merchan's return. According to a reporter in the courtroom, we sit in silence during this moment of high tension. Suddenly, the courtroom door swings open loudly. Several of us whip our heads around. It's none other than Andrew Giuliani. So Andrew Giuliani is now sitting in the...
I'm Quincy Howe of ABC News saying good evening from New York.
One moment here. Sitting in the booth there, so... Oh. We have received a note. We, the jury, have a verdict. This is breaking news just in. The jury has a verdict. At the end of the day, this is the fate of the former president of the United States. Will we see a hung jury here? I'm going to consistently reload this here. We have a verdict. Okay, but we have an extra 30 minutes. According to the jury, they want an extra 30 minutes here. There is a note signed at 4:20 p.m. Eastern Time, 3:20 p.m. Central Time. Quote, we have a verdict, Judge Merchan says. The jury would like to take an extra 30 minutes to fill out the forms. That's right. The moment, it's taken 2 days, and you can see there at the bottom of your screen the timer there. 11 hours, 48 minutes, and 54 seconds. They're going to be filling out forms right now. We have a verdict. Trump also expected to speak at the end of the day, so we're going to be interested to hear his opinion. Whether that verdict is for him or against him, what he is going to say. Again, the jury has just reached a verdict. 1 second here, guys. I need to... One moment here. I'm just tweeting out. The jury reaching a verdict. That is the big news right this second. Now, we were expected to have no verdicts because Juan Merchan, the judge presiding over this case, came out saying the jury is going to go ahead and be dismissed at 3:30 Central, 4:30 Eastern here. That's not what's happening right now. Again, a note from Juan Merchan here. He says, we have a note. The jury now reaching a verdict in the Trump trial. The jury claiming they need an extra 30 minutes here. So that's what's going to happen as they fill out their forms here. We are expected to hear the fate of the former president of the United States and current frontrunner in the Republican race for president. I mean, this is going to be a detrimental next few minutes here and nerve-wracking next few minutes for the prosecution and the defense. No matter, if you think your case was great or not, for any prosecution or defense, you are going to be nervous in this moment where we are now at 11 hours, 48 minutes, and 54 seconds of jury deliberations. They come up with a verdict here. Just earlier this morning, they were hearing rereadings of the jury instructions. Okay, here's what happened. Okay, here's kind of what happened here from a reporter inside. Judge Merchan planned to excuse the jurors for the day. He disappeared from the bench, and when he returned, he announced that he had just received a note from the jurors at 4:20 p.m., 3:20 p.m. our time here in the Central Time Zone. The note said, quote, "We, the jury, have a verdict." Again, the jury has a verdict. Now we are going to sit here ever so patiently waiting for that to come. If you will. Just making quick social media posts here. There has been so much evidence in this case. There has been so much, many hours of testimony. We are to see what is going to happen here. It is going to be the next. We were consistently trying to update and see what maybe we can get from reporters inside that courtroom. The jury, again, the 12 jurors will flash that graphic that you've been seeing there on your screen there. A salesman, an investment banker, an attorney. We've actually have two attorneys on here. A teacher, a software engineer, the second attorney here, the former wealth manager, speech therapist, an employee in commerce, product development manager, and physical therapist. We now have a verdict reached in the trial that accuses the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, of 34 counts of falsifying business records with the intent to commit or conceal another crime. That other crime being New York Election Law 17-152. This is literally just in moments ago, Judge Merchan disappearing from the bench. Disappearing from the bench after saying he was expected to excuse the jury at about 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. He's not going to be doing that anymore, and rather we're going to hear a verdict, and then they have to confirm each individually what that verdict may be. Now, something to note, we were just going over jury instructions today. I want to see if I can pull that up and we can just break down kind of a little bit more in this case here as we stand by here for the verdict. They're filling out their forms. So again, the jury asking for an extra 30 minutes here. And I want to see if we can get the jury instructions pulled up. I believe it's page 27. One moment, guys. I'm going to check something here. I believe it is page 27. It may be a little after this here, okay? I just have to find exactly what's been, so we've had a controversial piece in this case. I just want to read it. Apologies here. Just stand by with me here. I'm attempting to find where. Okay, here has been what's really controversial here. So there's kind of three different things to this case, and I've seen on multiple different news organizations and just different graphics here. You have the charges, and that is the falsifying business records. Now, since this is obviously, it's been many years since in 2016 this happened. They had made it a felony so falsifying business records in the first degree, which means you kind of have to have something else to back it up here. So they had the intent to commit or conceal another crime. And there's three things, I'm sorry, and that other crime would be the breaking of the New York election law. And inside that New York election law, they can say, it was three things inside the New York election law when it comes to the unlawful means of the election law here that is the second rack here that kind of makes this a felony. The intent to commit or conceal another crime here. I'll read this here. Okay, so in determining whether the defendant conspired to promote or prevent the election of any person to a public office by unlawful means, you may consider the following. 1. Violations of the Federal Election Campaign Act, otherwise known as FECA. 2. The falsification of other business records. And 3. The violation of tax laws. So that is what the jury can decide here. And that is something that 4 of them can say one of them, 4 of them can say number 2, and 4 of them could say number 3. But all agree that the former president of the United States, is guilty on the falsifying business records with the intent to commit or conceal another crime, and he would still have a guilty verdict. So right now, inside that courtroom, we are waiting for the jurors to fill out the verdict form, which could take about 30 minutes here. And according to reporters inside the overflow room, which is the room for kind of press that may not be able to be forced inside to the courtroom here, they're having some troubles with the screen, but court officials rushed in to get that fixed. Yeah, this is a very critical time to not be having issues. Again, we have been on standby all day for anything. There hasn't been any notes, and then again, what we learned and what we saw the prosecution and then the defense walk past the doors here, and I'll see if we can get a feedback on those doors here in just a moment. If you'll stand by with us, I'll see if we can get a feedback on the doors. So stand by with me. Again, the jury reaching a verdict in the case that accuses the former president of the United States of 34 counts of falsifying business records with intent to commit or conceal another crime. This is breaking actively. The jurors requesting at least 30 minutes here to fill out their verdict form. Now, what those verdict forms say, that's beyond me. But it's likely guilty, not guilty, and may ask some other questions. I'm not sure how exactly that works. Now, how this will continue to go is the jurors, the foreperson, and I'll pull up this graphic again on your screen here. The foreperson, which is the first juror there, Under New York law, the first juror picked is the foreperson, but number one, the salesman here, he is the foreperson, and he basically says, okay, we have a guilty verdict, or we have a not guilty verdict, and then the judge will have to go through individually to each juror, confirming that guilty or not guilty is their decision, is their final verdict here. So something else to know is that within this, they have to be unanimous. So for an acquittal, you have to have all jurors saying not guilty. For a for a conviction, for a guilty verdict, all jurors must say they're guilty. But obviously, if all jurors were unable to agree with each other, then there will be what we call a hung juror, which means that the jurors could not all agree on the same thing. Now, do we know that's likely? Absolutely not. We want to refrain from speculating at a time like this when it is so critical. So updates again from the courtroom. Blanche whispering into Trump's ear, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan DA that's been prosecuting this whole entire case, has now entered the room. This is a critical time. Will we see a guilty or not guilty verdict in the first ever trial that accuses the former president of the United States of 34 counts of falsifying business records with intent to commit or conceal another crime? That other crime being 17-152 New York election law. We are going to take an extremely short break here in Brooklyn News. We will be right back with so much more coverage as the jurors fill out their verdict form. It has been since the request for 30 minutes at 4:20, which would have been 3:20. It's almost time for their 30 minutes to be up, but we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back here on Brooklyn News. And welcome back in here to Brooklyn News' coverage of Trump in the courtroom, or really deliberation day number 2 that has now reached a verdict here. We are not knowing what that verdict is just yet. According in the overflow room, quote, keep the outbursts to a minimum and stay in your seats afterwards until you're given further instructions, as a court officer tells us. It is tense. Trump amazingly has his eye closed, so there's feeds inside that overflow room, and they're able to see every kind of angle here of all the cameras that are placed in that courtroom. Now, the cameras are not public and rather just for the overflow room. So we are watching this all as it happens here. Again, why we're joining you, and let's go back to the very beginning of this. We were expected to see an adjournment for the day, really. Judge Merchan comes to the bench, the prosecution and the defense both there, and says that the jury was going to go ahead and be excused for the day at, I believe that was 3:30. They requested 30 more minutes, which will mean in about 6 minutes here, we will see the jury file out. Now, the process that comes from there, the Judge Merchan explained within his instructions, is that the jury the full person, and we'll pull our graphic back up as I'm going to be explaining this again probably multiple times throughout these next few minutes. The full person would say, we have reached a not guilty, a guilty, or we could not reach, an agreement here. And then we would see the judge have to go through individually through each juror and determine whether each of them do agree with what the foreperson has, I guess you could say at the time, claimed. But again, a verdict reached a critical time in this trial. This has been a long 5-week trial. 5-week trial, guys. Sorry. Um, so we are, I mean, just awaiting anything. So again, Alvin Bragg is in courtroom 1530 ahead of that verdict. Jury reaching a verdict in the case here. This is a critical time that we are going to continue. I mean, I'm reloading every 10 seconds to see if we have anything new coming from anyone inside that courtroom, any type of analyst. What will the 12 jurors do? There are 3 options here that we have discussed earlier times throughout, I mean, in the morning. I think yesterday morning we discussed the 3 options. They can reach a guilty verdict, which has to be unanimous in criminal New York court. It has to be a unanimous decision for guilty or an acquittal. An acquittal would mean that all jurors find the defendant in this case, the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, not guilty. And then we have a hung jury, which means they cannot agree. Which something tells me that there is not a hung jury for the factor of that they've only been doing this for 2 days. And they want to do their best to agree with each other. Now, how common is a guilty to not guilty verdict in this case? Yeah, that's beyond everyone. It should be, at least. So again, we are awaiting any moment now. Any moment in the next few minutes, the jury will file into the courtroom, and we will see the verdict announced, and we will be waiting for that. This is an extremely critical time in the case. You can see just below me here the timer. You can see the timer, 11 hours, 48 minutes, and 54 seconds of deliberations. We had a note come in. That note saying the jury is that actually, according to the judge here, quote, we the jury have reached a verdict, end quote. We have some interesting things to that's going to happen in the next few minutes here. And 38 minutes ago now, Mershon said he's going to excuse the jury at 4:30, according to one reporter here. And that's what we came on the air for, ultimately. And you're also seeing there in the bottom right there, that is the shot inside the courthouse, right outside the courtroom where there's officers standing, or they're standing kind of in that hole there. There's a hallway, and inside that hallway, it takes you down Citrus hallway, and that is where the courtroom is. So we are going to be watching this throughout the next little bit of what type of verdict we will reach in the case. Again, I can't reiterate this enough. It accuses the former president of the United States of 34 counts of falsifying business records with the intent to conceal or commit another crime. We see more officers now walking in the room. Oh, and then we are heading outside We may go back inside that courtroom soon. We will wait for that shot to come back up for us. Some of his reporters outside, I'm sure they're just standing by on their phones outside, waiting to see where this case is going to go. Mershon is now back on the bench. Okay, we are going to wait to see what happens here. Mershon now back on the bench. Again, Judge Juan Mershon entering the courtroom right now. He is back on the bench here. We will see what exactly may happen. Standing by for updates as we are following extremely developing, but also at the same time extremely developing breaking news. The jury has reached a verdict, whether that is not guilty or a hung jury, that's beyond me. And apparently Wi-Fi is down for some people inside the courtroom. Wi-Fi is down, personal hotspots are spotty, and this feed may be out of service when the verdict is read. Yeah. Because it is going to be a moment here. Mershon is now asking to bring up the jury. And we are now waiting more and more here. What might the jury rule? We don't know. There's so many questions here that people want to be answered, and they will not be answered until right after this. Also, what happens after this? If the president were to be found guilty, what happens after this? Do we see Judge Juan Mershon immediately sentence him? Do we see the former president, pulled out in handcuffs? Likely not, but we will have to watch exactly what the due process is inside court. Okay, Judge Juan Mershon is re-entering the courtroom. As he told the parties previously, he received a note from the jury indicating that they have a verdict. He directs a court officer to bring the jurors into courtroom 1530. I'm just going to be updating here. See if we have anything new out of this. So many questions in this case, and answers are coming in the next few minutes. What the jury might rule. Okay, and as we wait for new updates there, we will consistently be waiting for new updates as the jurors sent Judge Juan Mershon a note saying, quote, "We, the jurors, have reached a verdict." We are also seeing a lot of protection and a lot of protesters outside the courtroom right now. A lot of pro-Trump protesters. I'm not seeing any necessary clashes, but I know they're setting up for more. That's outside the courthouse right now. It may be in an area that's often referred to as the First Amendment Circle. It's kind of this park area where we are just kind of waiting to see what happens. I don't know if we'll see. I really hope Wi-Fi does not go out in that courtroom the second we see a verdict here. But we are watching everything right now and what may happen here. And Trump also expected to speak after court. What he will say, also beyond me. Again, happening right now, the jury has a verdict in the case New York v. Trump. And internet access is extremely spotty within this courtroom, according to reporters. Just standing by for any updates. This is the first ever criminal trial for a former president of the United States, so that is why history is being made. But history is also being made, and I mean, if he's found guilty or not guilty. And we have witnessed the due process of law. We're back. And we have witnessed the due process of law, is what I was saying there. Apologies, we lost our feed there for just a second. We are back in business here. Okay, here we go. Apologies about that. So right now, the jury now in the courtroom, little to no eye contact with defendant Trump, according to one reporter. In a moment like this, eye contact is very critical of what we are going to see. And what I was saying just before we started talking about this here is we have seen due process of law. So due process of law to the fact of, due process of law rather to the, even that's very controversial because some people say this has, even the defendant here, a scam trial and different things of that nature, but we have still seen the process of law, whether it was right, whether it was wrong. I have learned a lot of language in this, so. The jury finds the defendant guilty on the first count. That is the first count of falsifying business records with the intent to commit or conceal another crime. Count 1 here is guilty. Let's see about count 2. So count 1 is guilty. Donald Trump is now a convicted felon. If this were to continue, now if this goes through an appellate court and they said there was a mistrial or there was something wrong here, that can be revoked here. Counts 2 through 9 are guilty. Counts 2 through 9. So again, the former president of the United States here is now a convicted felon. Now, there's a lot of stuff to come with being a felon, a lot of different rules you do have to follow. What we are going to see after this is unknown here. Now, the judge does have to go through the jury individually to see what the jury is going to rule. But again, count 1 through 9. Every count here, guilty. All 34 counts. One moment here. All 34 counts of falsifying business records with the intent to conceal or commit another crime. Guilty. The jury ruling guilty here. There is so much in this case that we are going to follow. Donald Trump has been found guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records with the intent to commit or conceal another crime. Stand by here for the latest updates. Posting to socials here. Trump is found guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records with the intent to conceal or commit another crime. That is just in. You'll stand by with me. Sorry, guys, my phone is exploding as expected here. Again, the jury finding the former president of the United States guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records with the intent to commit or conceal another crime. The former president of the United States is now a convicted felon and current frontrunner in the Republican Party, might I add. One moment here. Donald Trump is the first ever president to be found guilty of these charges here, and the first ever president to be found guilty in a criminal trial as he's running again. So, waiting for what happens next. Trump looks over towards the jury as they each confirm that this, in fact, is their verdict too. Now, also to note, Trump is expected to speak later outside of the courthouse there, or outside of the courtroom. We also saw a feed earlier of many protesters out. All 12 jurors finding the former president of the United States and current frontrunner in the Republican Party run for president of the United States guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records with the intent to commit or conceal another crime. That other crime being New York election law 17-152. Mershon says to the jury, I want to thank you very much for your service in this case. It was a long time to be away from your jobs and your families, engaged in a very difficult task. I admire your dedication and hard work, he says. Reading this again here, Mershon says to the jury, I want to thank you very much for your service in this case. It was a long time to be away from your jobs and your families, engaged in a very difficult task. I admire your dedication and hard work. Judge Mershon to the jury just there. Blanche has an elbow on the desk and leans his head into his hands, then rubs his face. Donald Trump found guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records with the intent to commit or conceal another crime. Stand by here with me. Mershon tells the jury they are now free to discuss the case with anyone, and they're just as free not to. He mentioned he'd like to meet with them as a group shortly to thank them for their service and get their feedback, but he cannot discuss the details of the case. Again, just in there on the bottom of your screen, Donald Trump found guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records with intent to commit or conceal another crime. Mershon saying he would like to meet with the jury later. As Mershon is excusing the jury, Trump stands as each juror walks in front of him and out the side door. The jury now out. Blanche stands to say something, but he's a bit quiet and far from the mic. He adjusts the mic and says, there's no basis and no way the jury could have reached a verdict based on the testimony of Cohen. He lied. There was perjury committed. There's no reason the court should allow a verdict. Again, this is Todd Blanche, the lead defense attorney, really, adjusting the mic and saying there's no basis and no way the jury could have reached a verdict based on the testimony of Cohen. He lied. There was perjury committed. There's no reason the court should allow a verdict. Waiting for any more updates to come in here. I'm sure you misspoke when you said knowing not, suggesting that I know that anyone committed perjury, Rashawn clarifies. And Blanche says yes. Steinglass stands, respectively disagrees, and says there's more than enough evidence. Defense motion is denied. The final, or at least one of the final defense motions for a mistrial and for Judge Juan Merchan to not allow a verdict, saying he should not allow a verdict on the basis of the testimony from Michael Cohen, the former personal attorney to the former president of the United States. Merchan ruling denied there from the defense. Blanche asked to approach on the record, and the parties gather around the bench sidebar. Trump lawyer Todd Blanche is asking for a sentencing date mid to late July, so that'd be later this summer. Again, quick recap, what has just happened? The jury coming to a verdict. All 12 jurors finding the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records with the intent to commit or conceal another crime. The defense making a motion for the judge not to accept the verdict, claiming the jury should not be able to come with a verdict only on the basis of the testimony from Michael Cohen. The motion is denied by Judge Juan Merchan, and now the Trump lawyer, the defense head lawyer, as I would say, Todd Blanche, has now approached the bench on the record here, and they're discussing a sentencing date in mid to late July. Trump remains seated at the defense table, and Susan Necheles is 2 seats to his left, looking over at him. Sidebars over, Blanche now asking, as I was just saying, for a sentencing date in mid to late July because of Trump's charges in other jurisdictions, including a Florida hearing in late June. Steinglass says the standard is 6 weeks, so they don't oppose mid-July. Merchan will adjourn this matter for sentence until July 11th at 10 o'clock a.m. and order a probation interview and report. If there are any motions to file, Merchan asked, Merchan asked the defense to file no later than June 13th and for the prosecution to respond by June 27th. Trump's sentencing date is July 11th. Trump will be sentenced on July 11th. It appears they're fixing to walk out here. The former president may be getting ready to come to the cameras any moment now. Let's go full over there and stand by for him possibly to come to the cameras. We see people now walking out of the courtroom. This is after a guilty verdict. Here we see people walking to the fence, or walking to the back. There's Susan Necheles walking out. President Trump is soon fixing to speech as his sentencing date will be held on July 11th at 9 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time, 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. And you can expect us to be live for that. You see Emil Bouvet there is sitting in the back here. Todd Blanche, I assume that's the former president right across there, or right there. Yep, I see his nose and his hair there. That is the former president. He's talking to his lawyers and his group that he has with him today. It's unknown what they're saying to him. We cannot hear from that afar here. Let me turn this volume up here. We are standing by for Donald Trump to speak to the cameras after all 12 jurors came to a unanimous decision that Donald Trump is guilty on all 34 counts that the Manhattan District DA, District Attorney, the DA here, he is walking to the cameras. Let's listen in.
Mr. Trump, I just want to be convicted felon. Are you worried about going to jail?
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA, and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
Why should voters vote for a convicted felon?
Are you going to talk about? You believe in the rule of law?
Okay, and we always want to listen in there to see if he answers any of the press's questions as they screen them there. We were, again, this is history being made actively. President Trump, the former president of the United States, he says this trial is a scam. It was a trial brought by the Biden administration. He brings no evidence to back up that basis. But we are going to be following this till the end here. Again, June 11th at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time, at 9 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. And we are seeing people crying outside the courtroom. I believe we can still hear them. We see a male crying and screaming at the cameras. I can't hear what he's saying. I'm going to mute it here because I can't hear what he's saying. Don't want any profanity being spread. But he's crying. He's yelling at the camera. This shows, the impact of this trial. And now we move on to the basis of, does this affect voters' choices to choose him in the November election? And I cannot hear what this person is saying, screaming here. Stand by. Let's listen in for just a second. Let's see what he's saying.
President Biden. Ipso facto, innocent.
Judge, you cannot speak. You're not allowed to speak. What's the reason to have a judge? What's the reason to go to court? And I would say, even if you have an attorney cannot speak.
I love you. Thank
you can, I'm thinking it's like, what's the reason to go to court? If you can look at the judge, you can. The attorney can say nothing. The judge, you got to stay shut up. You can't talk. So why I'm going to court? I thought the reason I'm going to court because you want to hear. That's the reason we have judges, because judge is supposed to hear both sides, not one side.
When you think about the emotions right now, the emotions you feel right now about the verdict. What are the emotions? Could you name them?
Okay, and you were just listening in there to some voters speaking. You probably still hear them turn your volume back down there, feed there via the Times and the Sunday Times. Trump just speaking after being found guilty of 34 counts of falsifying business records with the intent to commit or conceal another crime. Our coverage is going to continue on all of our social media pages. Please consider a nice smashing that follow button, as we would say here, as soon as I can find it. On Instagram at Jackson Mitchell BN, on X at Jackson MITCHEBN, on Facebook Jackson Mitchell, our website brooklynnews.wordpress.com. I will have a full report tonight on my YouTube channel here, Brooklyn News. Thanks so much for tuning in, and thanks so much for following our long days and and these last 2 days very slow moving coverage. I'm Jackson Mitchell. We'll see you again tonight for our report. So many more reports ahead, but also on June 11th at 9 a.m. Central Time for coverage of Trump's sentencing after jurors find him guilty of 34 counts of falsified business records with the intent to commit or